Hello, welcome back. um, I decided to make another video. What do you mean, obviously? Um, okay, so this one's going to be more or less, so you've decided to grow, hydro. Well, which way? Full water culture or semi-water culture? So I think the best place to start would be, what is full water culture? Because the rest of it, will fall into place once you understand full water culture. It'll be easier to understand semi-water culture. So what is full water culture? Is okay, I got a plant here. Is that full water culture? Whole plant in the water. No, that's a plant going for a swim. So, okay, so if that isn't full water culture, what is? I mean, the plant is swimming. How could that possibly not be full water culture? Well, this plant is not going to stay swimming in the water. It's going to come out. It's going to come out. Might get a shake. And then it'll go up here, back up here, where it's going to live. Well, because it does need a drink, I'm going to put it back in the water. So, it's not going to go up there just yet because it really does need a drink. But because it is going to come out of the water, despite being fully emerged for the moment, that's not full water culture. Got my hand wet. I'm a little bit scared to touch the phone. So, what is full water culture? Well, I'm going to move this plant out of the way. What the hey, I'll put it in the water too. It doesn't need a drink, but it gets it out of the way. So I'm going to pick one of these roots. I've got 3 here. What was I filming? I'm sorry, I forgot to pay attention when I'm filming. Anyway, I've got another plant up here. I'm actually tethered because the phone is getting weak. But I got another plant up here. It's just sitting in the crook of the lucky bamboo. That's kind of where it's going to live. There we go. But technically it's got 4 roots hanging down, but that one's not long enough to do anything. I got these 3 roots here. Well, full water culture is not coming out of the water. Ever, really. I guess people take their plants out of the water to clean the water. But this is a fish tank. I don't have to, well, I probably will at some point have to scrub algae, but I don't need to refresh the water. I'll refer to it as living water. It's not going to go stagnant because it's moving. It's a fish tank setup, so I don't need to ever replace the water. It'll forever be and just get topped up. But I've got this root here, which, yeah, it's silver, but it's got a green tinge to it. It doesn't really need water. But for my experiment, I'm going to play the rule of thirds. This root is going to go in the water. And the tip of the root is just going to live there. See, it's already turned dark green. It's just going to live there in full water culture. Well, as these plants come out, we'll take this one out for a moment. So, see, it's no longer in the water, so it's not full water culture. It will sit back up here in its little home, if I don't break a root putting it back, and that's where it's going to live. So when it comes out of the water culture, it comes completely out. It doesn't have contact. So that's semi-water culture versus this one root. I've got 2 roots out and 1 root in. This one root is going to stay in full water culture. And I think I'll probably take it out for like just a moment when I put the other roots in, and probably put it up here in the filter so it stays in the water. It doesn't get a chance to dry out. Because if that one root, even in full water culture, if that one root either can't take care of the plant or rots away, I've got 2 other roots which can go, well, put you back in the water for a minute. I've got these other 2 roots here which can come around, and they too can go in the water. Stay over here. And they can get a drink, which is how I've been watering it. The last couple of times, this is how I watered it, with all 3 root tips in the water. But because I don't do, as a rule, I don't do full water culture, after sitting in the water overnight, I just take them and bring them back out again. Keep it on film. So they're not in the water all the time. They were in the water and then they came out of the water. This one is going to stay in full water culture all of the time. And my wet hands are touching it, so it's getting water a little further up. But I'm going to see, leaving them in all the time, I would think, if you guys would just stay over here, would rot the root, especially if it's not used to it. These roots are not used to full water culture. So I'm going to see how this plant likes it with just one of its roots in full water culture, and the others can come in and out, and they probably will. Occasionally, I don't know. They may or they may not, I guess. But that's full water culture, with the root being in the water at least most of the time. Whereas semi-water culture, they come out for a period of time. Like, nope, that one's actually getting a drink. This is the one that doesn't need a drink, so I'm going to go ahead and take it back out. The roots aren't in the water now, so they're, out of the way. Everything's out of the way with this one, so it can go back up. This is the one that was the emergency phal. It had that one big leaf that had a crack in this one side. Well, I wasn't fast enough, but it got a crack in the other side as well, just before dying and falling off of the plant. So this is what I think was the kiki coming out of the crown, basically. And I'm not too sure. It may have just been set back badly, so it looks like it's been returned to a kiki, which by definition it really has, if that's all the bigger the leaves are getting. So severely set back. This other one, not so much set back. It's got 3 little leaves now. But it was a keiki to begin with coming off the side of the plant. So that's this one. This is the one that was in bad shape. It's got, these brown roots, which are dead. I don't know if the filament inside is doing anything. This one here on my thumb, it's pretty much looks like it's dead up at the base, but the tip is still alive, seemingly. But I'm just leaving them on. With semi-water culture, they dry out. They're not in bark, so they're not causing any rot. If the root inside is still doing anything, wonderful. If not, well, then I can, just use it as anchors. But they're not hurting anything. They're not causing the dirt to go bad. They might be putting tannins into the water, which I don't mind that this water's not crystal clear. It's clear, but it seems to have a little bit of color to it. I think that's tannins coming off of the plants, and there's still some dead leaves in there. I think one full leaf just got buried under the gravel, and it's probably putting off some tannins. But I don't mind. The water's a little yellowy. Yeah. But I don't mind it. It's not dark or anything. So we've got this one, which will come out because it's getting semi-water culture. And just because of the way it gets a foliar feed at the same time. So anything that can get in through the leaves and be a foliar feed, there we go. So this one up here is now in full water culture, kinda, sorta. One root is. The others will help out when and if necessary. But that one is technically in full water culture, as long as I don't take that root out. This one is semi-water culture as well as everybody else. And this one is going to be a bit of a different experiment. It's got a lot of roots, but it's got one coming over the tank and down toward the water. Now it looks like it's been growing that way. Well, it hasn't. I just put it up on there a couple hours ago. It was already tilted down, and then it looks a little bit like it's branched off the side, but it hasn't. Back right there is where it initially splits. Kind of looked like it developed a mouth or 2 heads, which is what it really did. It was weird. It didn't really branch out the side. It just kind of formed 2, I want to say brains, because I watched a video that talked about roots basically with a brain at the tip of them. The Phalaenopsis, purple Phalaenopsis tend to have a purple tip to their roots. That's basically where the brain is, according to this video. And if something happens like this, where the tip dies, then the root can keep growing and being a root, but it doesn't behave as if it has its brain, which it doesn't. But that's an entirely different video. The root that's tilted down toward the water is not quite in the water yet, but I'm sure if it's got an active brain, I know this sounds retarded, but silly. Let's go. I don't like that word retarded, but it does sound silly for sure. So if that's an intact root with its brain or thinking abilities, it's already headed in the right direction, and it must sense the water right there. I mean, the water is maybe a ½ inch away from it. So let's say this root that I put in full water culture back here decides to rot and die. Well, I've got these other roots that can continue on with semi-water culture. But if this root grows down into the water of its own accord, I suspect it'll be less likely to die and rot because it'll be able to adjust as it goes into the water. Not to mention that this water there's that word oxygen again, and if you try to tag anything onto the end of it, at least for my tongue, it gets complicated. But yeah, it's renewing itself with oxygen. I'll say it that way. So maybe this root won't rot away because it's not going to come out. If it does, it'll just be temporary to keep it separated from the other two, which I really don't think I'm even going to have to do that. So I think it's going to stay in the water. And then this one isn't in full water culture yet, but if that root goes into the water and decides to live in the water, it will be. Again, it's got all these other roots to help support it if the one is not enough. So, that is the difference between full water culture and semi-water culture. And I also snuck in a little idea that can help you decide if your plant would be willing to have full water culture, or if maybe it would prefer semi-water culture. You can put, if you got these nice, beautiful, long roots like I do on a couple of my plants, you can put 1 or 2 roots in. I mean, I could have chose to put 2 roots in, but I kind of like to go with the rule of thirds. If I were to cut this 3rd root off, it would be much less damaging if I cut 2 of them off and only left 1. And as it is, that root is likely to only rot back some, not lose the entire root. So I think it's a safe way to effectively ask your plant if it would like full water culture, basically access to the kitchen at all times, can take whatever it wants, or if it would be happier in semi-water culture, provided it wants either one. I can understand that there might be some phals out there. I don't have any other kinds of orchids at the moment, so I can't really experiment with anything else. But I understand that there's some phals out there, as in Phalaenopsis orchids, that don't like water culture at all. Apparently, experienced people have tried to convert some Phalaenopsis over to some form of water culture. I prefer the word ponics myself because you got, aquaponics and hydroponics and, all these things in between. For orchids, we call it water culture, semi-water culture, full water culture. But yeah, my understanding is some experienced people have tried to convert Phalaenopsis over to water culture, only to put them back in dirt for fear that, they'll lose the plant if they continue to try. So this is a way, take one or, I wouldn't recommend any more than a third of your roots to go into full water culture. Because if you lose a third, that's better than losing more than a third. But if you can, I mean, that would be really kind of hard with, say, this plant. You could, put it in a glass and only have these bottom roots going into the water, I suppose. But if your roots are long enough and it's can be done, you might want to essentially just ask, can your roots handle full water culture? And if one or two of them rots because it doesn't want full water culture, maybe it'll be okay with semi-water culture. And if you're still losing roots, well, then I guess it better go back to, yeah, growing in something, I guess, because really with orchids, it's all some form of water culture. I kind of look at it as if it's not dirt, mica beads, glass beads, bark, lava rock. Really, I find all that to be water culture. Dirt is not water culture. Dirt is dirt. Basically, anything else is some form of ponics. Like I say, either hydroponics, aquaponics, some form of, water culture, if that's what you want to call it, in the orchid world. But if it's not dirt, it's some kind of ponics. It's how I see it. You can disagree if you want to. I don't mind. I can agree to disagree with some people. But that's my ideas on water culture. I've been doing it for a little while now. And kind of go back to the 911 episodes, emergency Phalaenopsis episodes, where this came out of bark and essentially was saved by going into hydroponics. Technically it was hydroponics until the fish went in, then it became aquaponics. Now I'm looking at it with the rules of semi-water culture versus full water culture. These have all been doing pretty good. I mean, it saved this one in semi-water culture. Now, for the ones where it will work with this setup, I'm going to see if they can't be introduced to full water culture. Okay, the idea, starting with this one, I put that one up first, and then I tuck that one into its little spot in the branches of the bamboo. This one here had started living for like, couple of days on that. The new stand. But I think I'm going to see if it can't live on this one over here. There's the crotch. But the fork in the plant, and the orchid's going to sit here. And then, as the bamboo grows, I can, make new. Here's another Y in the plant. At some point, maybe an orchid will sit there. And then as the plants grow, I can make new Ys by cutting the bamboo back and letting it start again. And just kind of have a wall of orchids. Lucky bamboo is supposed to grow. I want to go a little higher, but like I said, I got tethered to my phone. And just kind of have a wall with the new orchids, finding their place depending on where the bamboo and stuff is cut. And naturally, they will have to come down to the water for a drink until their roots get long enough that they can stay in their spot and either have semi-water culture or full water culture, depending on what the phalaenopsis anyway like. Because I know they can grow incredibly long roots. I don't know if they can grow their roots 8 feet long. But this one, before it came out and had its problems, its roots were, I want to say, about 3 feet long. So it could have, been up here on a branch with its roots hanging into the aquarium, taking what it wanted. This is how I think I am going to grow. It's yet another change, tweaking my system yet again. But if the roots grow into the water themselves, they're going to be considered full water culture roots, unless it's shown that that won't really work. So I guess stay tuned if you like where this is going. I kind of prefer you stay tuned anyway, for other ideas. Don't want to lose all of my viewers, although, yeah, the freeze at 17 subscribers, which I don't think I have. I don't even get 17 views necessarily anymore. But that all seemed to happen, that freeze and the lack of views. Other things could be involved. But that seemed to happen about the time I introduced the idea of using marine aquarium salt as a fertilizer. And I can't necessarily say I disagree. It sounds like a daffy idea. the duck. uh, it really does. And I don't think, had I not stumbled over it by accident, really, it, it really was kind of an accident how I discovered it. But I think it works perfectly fine, if not better, as a fertilizer. Um, I don't believe I need to supplement calcium because it's got calcium in it. A lot of your fertilizers seem to assume that your tap water is going to have calcium, so they don't put calcium in it, or they don't put as much calcium in it. Well, marine aquarium salt, intended for saltwater aquariums, calcium is very important in a saltwater aquarium. They're not going to rely on tap water, which you might not even be using, because saltwater people, they want their water pure to begin with. Not RO pure, but RODI pure. Yeah, that's very pure. 1, 2, 3 readings on a pin, and they're changing their DI resin. Just with a couple of readings on the TDS pin. Now, they add the salt before worrying too much about the pH, because they want the water so pure to begin with. A pH meter would probably kind of freak out, especially these cheap ones. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but serious saltwater aquariumists are not buying $15, $20 pins. They're taking it up a notch or two. So, yeah. The pins are of a little better quality, hopefully. Some that are new to salt maybe not be going, with a $200 meter or anything to start with. But if you're going to buy fish, saltwater aquarium fish, a lot of those are more expensive than the budget pH and TDS pins. So they have a tendency to up it a little bit, because why would you rely on a piece of equipment that, maybe half as expensive or less than what you're hoping it will protect? Doesn't quite add up. But anyway, that's the video, and I went off on a bit of a tangent at the end. But yeah, full water culture or semi-water culture? Why not let the plant help you decide? And with that, I'll talk to you next time.